Hello and welcome to the Road from Emmaus podcast. I'm Jason Lowe, joined by Andrew Chow, and we are two totally ordinary Catholic guys hoping to share our journeys. Like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, we've each encountered Christ in our lives. Join us as we talk about what comes next. It's the first time Andrew and I have done an episode in a while, so we're celebrating with a bit more of a fun one this time. Today we draft our own teams of saints. Saints we relate to, saints we rely on, or just saints that we like. We share what we know about the stories of these saints, as well as what sainthood is about in general. Hope you have fun with this one, and we recommend heading over to YouTube to watch along instead of listening, if you can. So we're back. We're back in person. Andrew and I are at my condo. So I guess this is the first time that we will be recording here instead of at your place.
Yeah.
On my couch. I don't have a dining table at my condo or anything, so we're gonna have to make do with the couch here. But so
this makes it feel more like a podcast, anyways. I
guess so. This
we need those boom arms, and we were talking about that, right?
Yeah, we're not there yet in terms of our level of our ability to afford things.
We don't even have a Patreon to talk to our supporters about that.
But on that note, feel free to send some money our way if you ever want to. So today's podcast will be a little bit different than usual. I would say that we planned a bit more of a fun podcast. Before we even continue on, I actually would recommend, if you are listening on Spotify or your podcast app or whatever it is, maybe switch over to YouTube. Just because today, like I said, it's going to be a bit more of a fun podcast. We have a bit more of a visual aid and guide for what we're going to do. So head over to the YouTube link if you have the time, if you're able to. If not, you'll still be able to follow along while listening. So no worries on that. So today we're gonna do a podcast about the saints. All the different saints that we've kind of heard about and know about. We're gonna talk about sainthood and what goes into sainthood and some things like how does one even become a saint, things like that. But we thought the format for that would be it would be fun if we did this thing called a draft. Now, if you're into sports like Andrew and I are, you'll be familiar with the idea of drafting athletes, I guess. So in a very quick nutshell, whether it's the NHL, whether it's hockey, baseball, or basketball or football, pretty much any sport,
team sport.
Yeah, any team sport. If you're a professional athlete, once you reach a certain age, like a young age, for hockey, I think it's around 18 or 17. You are eligible to be drafted into the league. What that means is the teams of that league will select you and be like, hey, Andrew, I want you to be part of my team as you develop your professional career. And so you'll be part of my team, and I'm taking you, basically. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do here with the Saints. Basically, we have a list of I think around 40 saints that we've prepared, and we're going to try to put them onto our own teams. Now, basically, as we were preparing this, I was kind of trying to think through, what is the point of this? It's hard because in professional sports, it's put together the best team possible. It's
a win.
It's hard to do that with saints, right? So, Andrew, you came up with a good idea.
So we're just going to do this based on petitions that we think that we'll need for the rest of our lives. So we're going to try and put together the best team of saints that are where their patronages are going to be useful in our lives and things that we think that we'll need help with over the course of our saintly career.
Exactly. So I guess at the end of this, we're going to have to take a look at the teams that we've assembled and be like, does this team of saints actually make sense for what our lives are going to be about?
Yeah.
So some rules for our draft. So we're actually we're going to allow trades, right? So, if there are saints or if there are just draft picks that we want to trade or packages of both, we're going to allow that. And, maybe you'll see that materialize throughout the draft. Like I said, we have a pool of around 40 saints. But of that 40, only 24 will be selected. So just to get to that number, it was basically 12 saints for each of us. And 12 comes from the number of apostles that Jesus had. That's how I came to that number. Also, so that it doesn't take too much time, hopefully. This, just as a heads up, this podcast will probably be on the lengthier side, maybe closer to an hour, 45 to 60. Just as a heads up. But since I specifically worded it so that it would be 24 total saints to be selected, but since we can trade like multiple saints or multiple picks, it does not necessarily mean that both of us will end up with 12 and 12.
That's true.
So just as a heads up. The draft will be broken out into 3 rounds. So in each round, 8 saints will be selected for a total of 24. Does that make sense so far?
I think so.
Okay, cool. And then just as we're kind of going through the selections, we'll try to explain, why we chose a particular saint. We'll give a bit of info on what that saint is about.
Yeah.
This is easily the most prep Andrew and I have ever done for an episode. But,
I'm still reading through it. I'm like, man, I should have thought about who I want to draft.
Yeah, well, same thing here. Don't worry. I just threw on a bunch of saints that I knew, but I didn't actually strategically go about figuring out which saints I want.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll provide a bit of information on that saint. So hopefully, that's the idea, right? Like, this is a fun structure, but hopefully it's still kind of educational for you, our listeners. Definitely for ourselves as we were researching and prepping. There were some things that I found out about saints that I just didn't know, if not for this episode. So, so that's basically how this draft will run. I'll hold off on this for now, but I want to say we'll cap our decision-making process to 30 seconds if we need it.
Sure.
If we find that we're taking too much time to actually choose a saint.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Basically, if we need to fill for each other while we're thinking, then it's probably taking too long.
Yeah, exactly. True. I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that I would have to, if one of us is thinking,
analyze our own selections.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that 30 seconds only applies to actually choosing, in terms of providing the info about the saint. That's fine. Okay, yeah. So, I guess we'll get into it. I'm going to flash up on the recording, on the YouTube recording. I will flash up this screen at this point. But before we actually dive into the mechanics of the draft, I think it would be good to actually start about, what are saints, period.
Yeah, sure. Saints, basically, the word itself comes from the Latin sanctus, which is Latin for holy. So literally, it's holy people. But saints are people who we understand to be in heaven. It's confirmed that they made it to heaven. The way to become a saint, there's a lot of layers to it. So it's really quite a rigorous process. Essentially, there are how many levels are there to it? There are 4 levels to this in terms of what happens. So first, basically, you need to wait usually 5 years before your case can be put forward at all. There are exceptions to that. St. Mother Teresa and St. John Paul II most recently come to mind. But generally speaking, you need to wait 5 years before what can happen is your local bishop can your local pastor, can present a case to your bishop to say, hey, this was a really holy person who should be considered to be a saint. And once they're accepted into that consideration, they're called a servant of God. And basically what happens at this point is there will be a team of people that will start scrutinizing that person's life. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily to say that they were a saint in the way that the world says it, to say that they were perfect, but more to see, did they try to become a better person? Did they actually live a somewhat holy life?
Did they live a virtuous life?
Exactly. And so this will actually go into quite a lot of detail. They'll go into interviewing family, friends, people they met through their lives, quite a bit of detail that they go into here. Once this has been kind of confirmed, the Church and the Vatican Congregation for the Causes of Saints will declare them that they have lived a life of what they call heroic virtue, and they're granted the title of venerable. So some venerable people that you might have heard about are Venerable Fulton Sheen. So Bishop Barron talks about Venerable Fulton Sheen a lot, wrote a lot of books. Venerable Bruno Lanteri, you may or may not have heard of him. He's actually, I've heard about him more recently than before, but he's the founder of the Oblates of the Virgin Mary. Father Timothy Gallagher, if you've heard of him before or read his books, he is of this order. Also, if you're from the GT family, Venerable Bruno Lanteri's quote is what was used as our theme for GT 19.
Oh, that's where I recognize it from.
Yes. And so that's him. So then you can be declared venerable. After that point, basically what happens is the Church will wait for you to have miracles attributed to prayers of petition towards you. So basically, or your intercessory prayer, I should say. So what will happen is there will be particular types of miracles that can be accepted, but you'll have things like people who are on their deathbeds for terminal cancer or whatever, and what happens is a group or a community will start praying to this venerable person and saying, hey, can you please intercede for us? And if it's determined that there was enough of prayer towards this person and this is deemed to be a true miracle, then that will be attributed to that person. You need, I believe, 3 miracles attributed to you before you become a saint. But after one miracle is attributed to you, then you become declared what's called blessed, or the actual process is called beatification. Yeah. So examples of people who are blessed at this point, Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, who you may have heard of. He was a young Italian young man who was just like a really normal lay person who just prioritized his faith. Really, really awesome story. Great to read about. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point anyways. Blessed Carlo Acutis as well, another Italian who passed away. Was it 05 or 06?
06, I think.
06. And he's looked at as being potentially the first millennial saint. So just a couple examples there. In terms of what actually needs to be declared a miracle, though, this is also obviously extremely rigorous. What's brought together is a group of both, Catholic scientists and atheist scientists to try and prove actually that this was not a miracle.
It had to have been an act of God.
Exactly. Yeah. So like they'll go through and be like, could it have been anything environmental or whatever that caused this naturally? And then if no one can prove that, then will they consider it a miracle? And yeah, so after a number of miracles, then the case will be presented to the saint. And the saint can canonize, or the pope. And the pope can canonize.
The case of the saint will be presented to the
pope, who will then potentially canonize the person as a saint.
Yeah. So I think there needs to be. I don't remember if you mentioned, but there needs to be that second miracle.
Yes.
After that first miracle happens, in order for the canonization to happen and for the pope to. But another note that I saw when researching was that if you're actually martyred, that first miracle doesn't need to happen.
Right.
Apparently.
Yes.
So definitely if you're martyred, then really you only need, I think, one additional miracle to potentially become a saint. What was interesting that I learned yesterday while looking through this was that there wasn't actually a formal canonization process, saint making process, until the year 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
so that's easy to remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But it was established by Pope Gregory the IX. And prior to that, I guess they kind of just looked at, like you kind of mentioned offhand, people who were living super holy lives but then if you don't really have that structure, there's always going to be a couple of those cases where it's just like, probably shouldn't have become a saint, or probably shouldn't have named them a saint. And so they established this process in the year 1, 2, 3, 4. And since then, like you said, saints are people that are confirmed basically to be in heaven, right? As a quick reminder, once we pass on from this life, generally we probably go to purgatory, and that's where we kind of work on the refining of our souls so that we are ready to go into heaven. But for saints, we believe that they are so holy that the lives that they lived on this earth was so holy that they just go straight to heaven. Okay, so hopefully that was a good 101 background of what saints are. I realized that this would actually be a better time to flash up the board that we've prepared. So on your screen, you'll see that now. Basically, you'll just be able to follow along with whatever it is that we're doing in terms of drafting. You'll see on the left the draft order, which is to be determined. We'll determine it in 5 seconds. Obviously, you'll see Team Andrew, so the saints that Andrew selects, Team Jason, the saints that I select, or the saints that we trade back and forth. And then the pool of saints that are to be drafted is on the right under the undrafted section. So you can take a gander at all the saints that we prepared there. Let's actually get into this whole draft thing. So I'm going to switch the view to this Excel randomizer thing that I prepared as well. Basically, this is what we're going to use to actually determine the order of the draft.
Okay.
Right? So it's just a bunch of random numbers. I don't want to get into the technicalities of it. It will be boring. But what I'm going to do is I will hide these columns so that you can't see. So what happens, I'll just show you first. What happens is when I type, make any change at all, everything changes.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide these columns so you can't see the outcome. And then I'm just going to keep making changes, and then you tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Okay? So, go.
Stop.
Okay. All right, let's take a look.
How crazy would it be if you like drew something?
I'm not that intense. Okay, so this draft order seems pretty acceptable. I will just type it in over here. Monitoring between two laptops. Okay. I'm going to put this here for now.
Go on my laptop.
Do you have you don't have the spreadsheet open though, right? Because I didn't send it to you.
Don't.
No worries. So this is where I will type all our names in the draft order. So when I was doing this last night just to test it out, one round is simulated such that like I had the first 4 picks and you had the last 4 picks. So I'm glad that did not happen this time around. All right, so you do have the first overall pick. So you can choose whoever it is that you want. Unless you want to trade that first overall pick to me. Like, I'm not going to complain about that, depending on the offer.
Well, given that there are no bad picks.
That's the thing about this Saints draft idea is, you know, there's going to be, at the end of it, like 16 Saints left over or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, no one's going to feel sorry for them because they're in heaven.
Saints.
Yeah, so no need for that.
I hope like somewhere in heaven, like there's some sort of like side pool going on.
That would be amazing. Like if they're just watching it from up above,
yeah,
and just like having their own fun with us,
yeah,
like making fun of each other
for
not being selected. All right, man, you are on the clock. You can choose your first saint.
Oh my goodness. I think with my first pick, the first pick in the 2021 Saints draft, I'm gonna select.
I need to play the NBA.
Yeah, you do. Adam Silver.
The jingle.
We should have Adam Silver like for every pick. Anyways, let's have. I'll take St. Peter.
St. Peter. All right. So
I need to do the drag thing.
Yeah. Do you want to drag it over?
Let me find him. Where's St. Peter?
It is alphabetically sorted.
Oh. St. Peter.
Here we go. All right. Solid pick. What do you know about St. Peter?
St. Peter. He is the first pope. So there is the Bible verse from Matthew 16, verse 18. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the powers of death will not prevail against it. I picked him in particular because he is the unworthy first pope in a lot of ways, right? So he was the one who really rejected God, rejected Jesus 3 times in the Passion story, and he just was very up and down, right? And I feel like that's very similar to me. I get like very up and down about things, and I also end up in leadership positions quite a bit. So I think like having his position will be very helpful for me for the rest of my life, especially for like mission or for ministry work, because you know he definitely relates to what I'll be going through and the struggles that I'll have,
right?
In terms of like feeling the lack of confidence or even the overconfidence at some points. And knowing which graces I'll need, so I'll definitely need those petitions.
I think Peter is such a great first pope of the church because, you know, like you already mentioned, like he's known for his little faith.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so relatable, right? Like you've already mentioned all the different examples of how you relate to him, but like who among us have not had little faith, moments of little faith in Jesus, right? So so good. Someone who was on this list was who is not on this list is also St. Thomas, who's known as like St. Thomas the Doubter. Yeah. Another instance of that. But yeah, so I will make my first pick, and I'm just going to go straight for Pope St. Gregory the Great. Now, first I'll talk about the saint. To be honest, I don't know too much about the saint. Pope St. Gregory the Great, he is the patron saint of musicians, singers, students, and teachers, apparently. And he is known as a doctor of the church. Now, again, that is the extent of the knowledge that I have on this guy. I chose him because he is Andrew's. Is he your personal patron saint, or is he?
No,
is he,
he's my. I took his name when I was confirmed.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're confirmed.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a little bit of Schadenfreude going on there. Do you have more insight?
I do. He is. He wrote Gregorian chant.
That makes sense.
I don't believe there was either there wasn't much music, or there wasn't any music in Mass before that, or there just wasn't standardized music. So he wrote Gregorian chant, which is, if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's beautiful music. It's what you'll hear in like Latin Mass, which you can't really go to anymore.
We'll have an episode
for another pod. It is beautiful music though, yeah. And it's a funny story. I chose him literally because classic me. I literally was Googling the most impressive pope I could find. And he is like a pope and a saint, and his name the Great, and he wrote music and like a lot of things. And anyways,
and so that's why took his name for your confirmation.
Literally, that's exactly why.
Okay, well,
I have the next pick, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? The next pick that I will take is Saint Joseph. So Saint Joseph is the patron of many things, including of the Universal Church, as well as of men and of fathers. So reason why I pick him is relatively self-explanatory. I'm a man, but also, being recently married and being that we're going to start thinking about planning to have a family at some point. I just know that having Saint Joseph, his intercession is going to be really, really important for me to protect my family. To he has this whole litany of all the different things he's known for. My favorite among those is glory of the domestic life. Just nice. Because I think the domestic church is such an important thing, and that he was so quietly living out the virtues of having a good domestic life. And domestic church is something that I really know I can learn from, and something that I could use his petitions for and his intercessions for.
Very nice. Very nice. Not going to lie, St. Joseph would have been my actual first pick if I didn't want to engage in a little bit of Schadenfreude. So, good choice. I have the next 3 picks, apparently.
Okay.
So, I'm going to go... My first pick will definitely be... my first of the 3, that is. I'm going to go with St. Matthew.
Okay.
I'm dragging the wrong thing there. Team Jason. St. Matthew. So, St. Matthew... he's the patron saint of accountants. So obviously, given my career choice, that is the choice for me. There have been times where I'll definitely just be going through my workday and I'll quickly send up a prayer to him because I need the help, obviously. But he's also near and dear to my heart because the elementary school that I went to was also named St. Matthew. So it was funny. I never knew that St. Matthew was the patron saint of accountants for like half my life. And then probably when I was 17 or 18, I found out that St. Matthew was the patron saint of accountants, just as I was discerning into, I guess, the accounting profession.
Sure.
And I was like, this is fitting, because I have good memories of my elementary school too. So that's that choice there.
That's my middle name.
Right. Yes, I found that out through e-transfer actually. So I constantly forget that it is your middle name.
And I'm not an accountant, but. It's actually, if you haven't seen it before, the show The Chosen gives actually a really good kind of view of St. Matthew that we don't often see, which is really cool. I don't know how biblically accurate it is, but it is interesting to see.
We've had many of our mutual friends just recommend it to us. So I watched the first episode. I intend to finish
I've seen the first season.
Okay.
I haven't started the second season yet, but it is good. It's really cool because it's almost like a dive into... I think it's called, is it called Ignatian contemplation, I think? Which is basically a form of prayer where you contemplate by putting yourself in the shoes of people in the biblical stories.
Yeah. So
like as if you were there.
Interesting.
And so being that this is very much like a live action, it starts off even without Jesus in the scene at all. Yeah. It's very, very much that kind of forced way to go into that kind of prayer. Really.
You're right. I've only watched one episode, but I would recommend it. But now that you put it that way too, it does do a really good job of providing the perspectives of people around Jesus.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Just from that one episode. Right. I do have the next pick.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go with... Saint Michael the Archangel.
Okay.
So he is the patron saint of our archdiocese, I
think so, yeah.
Given that the cathedral is named after him.
Yeah.
So St. Michael the Archangel is known as the protector, right? Often whenever we are facing temptations, we pray to St. Michael the Archangel to join us in the battle against temptations and sin. And it's very effective. A lot of the churches within the diocese, after Mass, we will immediately turn to, some churches will turn to a portrait painting of St. Michael and pray the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel.
Yeah, heard some great stories even too. I think heard some stories of Bible camps where it was actually really crazy. There were stories of exorcism that had to happen in these camps.
Okay.
And basically what happened was there was this girls' cabin that was screaming all at night, and everyone wasn't sure what was happening, and the counselors weren't sure what to do. So they prayed a rosary in front of the cabin, and then they finished off with the prayer to St. Michael. And literally the second they finished the prayer to St. Michael, all of it went away. So it's really, really crazy.
That is crazy. Thank you for bringing up the rosary, because I forgot to mention off the top that you'll notice on the list of saints that Mary is not on this for a good reason. In terms of it would just be too OP, overpowered if we put Mary on this list.
To be fair, there are 2 levels that are above normal saints.
Yes, exactly.
And one is Mary, and the next one is Saint Joseph, and I already took Saint Joseph, so I don't remember what they're called, but
good choice. Good choice with Saint Joseph then. Okay, I do
do
have one more pick in the first round. I'm going to go with the home pick on this one, and I'm going to take Saint Genevieve, because my girlfriend's name is Genevieve, and that's why. But in terms of things that are actually relevant to who the saint is, she's a patron saint, one of the many patron saints of girls. So this is the first lady that we've taken in our draft here, but yeah, patron saint of my girlfriend, who she was named after. So that's that.
There you go.
Yeah. You have the next 2 picks.
I do. So with my next 2 picks, I'm going to start having fun because we're fun. So my next pick, I'm going to take St. Jude, who is the patron saint of lost causes, because that will be very useful in my life. Also, fun fact, so St. Jude is actually my first elementary school. So St. Jude is one of the apostles, actually. So his actual name is Judas Thaddeus, not Judas Iscariot, who is the one who betrayed Jesus.
The bad guy.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty straightforward why I need petitions for lost causes, because I am one.
Aren't we all, though?
With my next pick, I am going to take, actually, which one? I'm going to take Saint Augustine.
Oh, that was literally going to be my next pick.
So Saint Augustine of Hippo, more accurately, because there is also Saint Augustine of Canterbury. But St. Augustine of Hippo, he is known as one of the champions of the faith. He has a really, really beautiful story. I don't remember who I heard talking about this, but there are different types of saints that you hear about and hear people speak about. There are, in the spectrum, there are saints that are born and grow up close to God. So examples on our list are Saint Maria Goretti, Saint Therese of Lisieux, and they're just always close to God. And then there are saints that go on the other side of things, which go far away from God and then come back. So Saint Augustine's one that we don't have on our list. Saint Ignatius of Loyola is another one that's like that. But yeah, so he lived a life of lechery, of just sin. He was even, I believe, a preacher in the heresy of Manichaeism. So lots of different things that he did. But then what ended up happening is he was converted in, I think, Milan. And then he just did a full 180 and became a champion of the faith. And he defeated many, many heresies, including Arianism. If you don't know what Arianism is, there is a great Bishop Barron video on it and how St. Augustine defeated it. But yeah, lots of the councils, apostolic councils, through his time, he was there, and he was the one who was defeating heresies. So that's St. Augustine of Hippo.
Another reason why I would have wanted St. Augustine is because he was the high school that I went to was named after him. So
the elementary school, the second elementary school I went to was named after St. Augustine of Canterbury.
Oh, okay.
Because also St. Augustine.
Fair enough. Okay, so that will conclude our first round. I have to say, you're doing an excellent job of aligning the names. I was trying so hard last night when I was making the undrafted side, and I just couldn't make it work. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
It's very good. Not that that's relevant. But after the conclusion of the first round, Team Andrew, St. Peter, St. Joseph, that's just like two powerhouse names right there. St. Jude, St. Augustine, can't go wrong. Team Jason, Pope St. Gregory the Great, St. Matthew, St. Michael the Archangel, and St. Genevieve. So I realized I had wanted to talk about or ask this question before we actually started, drafting and everything. But we've been talking so much about being patron saints.
Yes.
We never actually explained what that means. What does it mean to be a patron saint of something?
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, or maybe we should even take a step back from that and talk about intercessory prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the big things about the Catholic faith is that, we believe that the goal is to be in heaven, and heaven being not a place, but a state of being united to God. And so that is what opens up a channel, I suppose, to this thing that we call intercessory prayer. Intercessory prayer really is praying, asking someone to help you pray, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So it would be like if I needed a favor from Jen, your girlfriend, and I said, hey, Jason, do you mind helping me ask for this? Because I'm not sure the best way to approach Jen.
Yeah.
And I'm not even necessarily sure what I need to ask for. So that's probably an analogy for intercessory prayer.
That's a good way of putting it.
The first time we see this in the history of the Catholic faith, really, or most aptly portrayed actually, is in the wedding of Cana, when basically they are out of wine, they don't know what to do, and Mary intercedes for the bride and the groom and tells Jesus, hey, can you help them out? And you see Jesus saying, no, I don't think so, and then Mary says, actually, please do.
Yeah.
And then Jesus listens. So that's the first example we have of intercessory prayer, really, in the Bible, as far as I know. And so with these patron saints, really what we're looking at is people who have had certain experiences in their earthly lives, and so are able to kind of relate that back to what we need in those moments. Mm-hmm. So being that they're in heaven, that means that they're united to God. They know God in a better way than we do, and they're able to know what to ask for in a way that we don't. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we say, hey, St. Peter, I'm having a time of doubt like you did in the Passion story. Please pray for me so that I might receive the graces I need in this moment. You know what those graces are because you've experienced this.
So I can follow in the same footsteps that you put down already.
And go and pursue sainthood. Yeah. So that's the idea of both patronage and intercessory prayer.
Yeah, similarly, that's why I said, when I selected St. Matthew as the patron saint of accountants, I will pray to him when I'm going through something in my career or in my workday.
Yeah. But the important thing is to understand that we're never asking for the graces from these people. We're asking for them to pray for these graces from God. So it's never Mary that we're praying to and worshiping in that sense. It's always God, but we're asking for the help, the intercession through these other people.
They are middle people.
Exactly.
Middle people who are very elevated since they're in heaven.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm going to put you on the spot here. To be honest, I haven't prepared for this question either. But if you were the patron saint of something, what would you be the patron saint of?
My goodness. I would be paired to St. Jude for lost causes. I think, I don't know. I would probably be...
While you think, I think the one I would be would be just the patron saint of a very ordinary life. So I'm wearing this t-shirt right now that I'm very happy about. I just got it over like a few days ago. It's, I'm not going to say the brand, although it says right there. It just says t-shirt on it, and I love it because it's so plain and ordinary. And I feel like that's a very... It defines my life very much. I don't go looking for highs and lows. Certain, not to say that I don't experience them, but I would definitely say I prefer to take the path that is just kind of straight through and in the middle of everything.
To piggyback off of that, I think what I would be is the exact opposite. I can't think of a really good, eloquent way to say this, but I would be, I think, the patron saint of like windy roads. Because I've had like a very bizarre path in my life, both in terms of where I've gone, what I've done, and how I've gotten to where I am, in terms of my career, in terms of Even being in Toronto, like this was never part of the plan. So I think I would be the patron saint of that.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Nice. All right, you want to get into the second round of our draft?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, so I do have the first pick of the second round. Now, what I would like to do is offer you a trade.
Okay.
I will give you picks number 9, 13, and 14, and Pope St. Gregory the Great for St. Joseph. So you get 7 of the 8 picks in round 2, and your own confirmation saint, I guess.
For St. Joseph?
For St. Joseph.
Oh my goodness. I need to see if there's anyone else who can be a patron saint of home life. Because I definitely need something for my home.
Patron saint of home?
Oh, I could, yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, no takebacks.
No. I will transfer St. Joseph over to you.
And I'll make the change on the draft order. So you get the first pick of round 2, and
I'm going to clear the board here, man.
the 5th and the 6th.
I get to have way more fun than you.
I know. You're going to be hearing from Andrew for the next 10 minutes, basically.
So what we'll do is we'll put in the YouTube link where you can jump to skip this section. All right. It's because I'm using my finger.
I guess. And I'm using my touchpad.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, for those who are listening, I'm just trying to align Andrew's saints so that it looks better. And that's what that was about.
Anyways. Okay, so with my 9th pick, I'm going to replace that domestic life with Saints Anne and Joachim.
Should pick them first.
Because so
I'm not doing very well at this.
These are the mother and father of Mary. So Jesus' grandparents. So as domestic life goes, pretty good. So they. I mean, is there much more to say than that? I don't know. I think as far as raising a holy family goes, raising Mary is a pretty good job. And yeah, I think that's all there is to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Solid pick.
Thanks, man.
You get the next one too.
Oh, is it? I thought it was you next.
So Andrew, and then Jason, and then all Andrew.
My fault. Okay. Next, I will take Saint Maximilian Kolbe, actually.
Nice. Yeah, you put some notes there, and I was like, I didn't know. I just thought he was. All I knew was that he was a Polish saint. Yeah,
he actually died really young too. A very, very passionate saint. I don't know that much about him, to be honest. I only know the things that I've read through a couple Marian consecration books that I've gone through. But he's one of the major proponents for Marian consecration and devotion to Mary. He started this group called the Militia Immaculate, which is basically like a Legion for Mary, if you will. It actually might be translated into the Legion of Mary. I don't actually know. But he is also known to be extremely messy, so that's part of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you can be messy and make it to heaven, which is great. And yeah, not having Mary on here, this is probably one of the closest things as I look up on the screen and I see another. But anyways, one of the closest things that we can get. And he, I think, is a great example of how we, in our time on earth, can still, devote and entrust ourselves to Mary's care and to her intercession. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's a couple solid picks to get yourself closer to Mary, I guess. Okay, so I have my one and only pick of round 2. I am going to go with... I guess I will go with Saint Valentine.
Okay.
Just because, obviously... The secular world has kind of changed it into... I mean, not really changed it, but obviously just all, Valentine's Day and everything. But it is actually coming from a Catholic tradition of Saint Valentine being the patron saint of love, marriage, and relationships. So I think that would be particularly helpful in my own discernment process with my girlfriend. So that's pretty much that.
Great. Yeah.
Back to you.
Back to me. The next saint that I'm going to go with is let me make sure I got the right one. Yes, Saint Drogo.
Yeah, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 5 straight picks, so you can just go.
I'm just so Saint Drogo. I found Saint Drogo on the list of the most peculiar patronages. But Saint Drogo is the patron saint of shepherds, coffee, and the ugly. So I have gotten really into coffee over the last year, and coffee houses, coffee shops, all of that stuff. My dream with Cherry is that we've already started thinking about retirement. Is to open a coffee shop in retirement.
That's cute.
And have like a booth in the back that's just for friends that like no one else can sit in. So that would be a lot of fun.
I assume you picked this guy for the last reason.
Yeah, definitely. So the Pink Shepherd's Coffee and the Ugly. Again, in keeping with my last pick as well. So you can be messy and ugly and still make it to heaven. And I need all the help I can get. So that's what that one is. My next pick. So where am I? That was the 12th pick, right? So
yeah.
The 13th pick. I'm going to take Saint Maria Goretti. So Saint Maria Goretti has a really beautiful story. If you haven't heard it,
one of the all-time like saint stories that I've ever heard. Like,
honestly, I love it. So Saint Maria Goretti is the patron saint of many things as well, but of girls, of abuse victims, of virgins. I believe also of chastity.
Yeah.
So particularly in my case. I'm picking her for being a patron saint of chastity. So to clarify why I'm doing this, chastity is a lot more than celibacy. We might have talked about this before even, but in essence, chastity being the ability to love properly. Mm-hmm. And particularly now in marriage, it's actually really interesting that chastity, or at least the need for living a chaste marriage in that sense of loving properly is becoming a lot more apparent to me. Mm-hmm. It actually gets trickier once you cross into the marriage boundary, I think, because that line isn't there anymore in terms of what is and isn't. And so it's just like it's a much finer line to walk, a lot more gray areas, I think. And
some people are all like excited about like, oh, like I don't have to practice chastity anymore once I become married. It's like that was never the case.
No, you might not need to practice celibacy in the same way, but chastity is definitely still there. So that's becoming really, really apparent, I think, and that's definitely something I'll need. So that was my 13th pick.
I do want to go into St. Maria Goretti's story.
Okay, do it, yes.
Yeah, so basically the story there is just, she had a neighbor, guy was named Alessandro, and I guess the long story short is that he came over one day and he sexually assaulted her. Like he kept making advances and she kept refusing, and he just got upset about it, and so, he sexually assaulted her, and he stabbed her 14 times. 14 times. But the really interesting thing about that, I guess, the beautiful thing is, even while, she was being physically harmed by this guy, she was just saying like, no, this is going to keep you from getting to heaven. Yeah. Like, stop doing this. Not because stop doing this for my self-preservation or anything. Stop doing this because it's going to keep you from getting to heaven. Yeah. So over the next couple of days, as she was in hospital, obviously she ended up succumbing to her injuries, but she expressed that she forgave Alessandro for what had happened, and that she even hoped to see him in heaven one day with her. I guess in the trial following after that, Alessandro, he was still unrepentant about what had happened. He was just not sorry about it at all. But then one day, I don't know how far into his prison sentence, but one day he had a dream about Maria Goretti. And basically this dream just totally made him a changed man. Yeah. He was released from prison 27 years after what happened, and he just went straight to Maria's mother and begged for her forgiveness. And Maria's mother just responded with, well, like, if my daughter forgave you, who am I to not forgive you as well? Again, just such a beautiful story. And so he was actually present at St. Maria Goretti's canonization in 1950. So just, like I said, like for me, one of the all-time stories, just to see the true the evil that happened. And then for, this St. Maria Goretti to, in the middle of it, just show true love, true charity, true forgiveness and mercy. And then decades later for this to still be a story between.
And just to like really drive this home, Saint Maria Goretti was 11 years old when she passed away.
Good point. Yeah.
So it's not just like someone who has had a lot of time to develop their faith in that sense, right? That many of us think about. And so this is, again, that story of the saints who are born close to Jesus' heart and stay close to Jesus' heart the whole way through their lives.
Exactly. Okay, I think are we on to pick 14?
I think so.
I believe so.
I think so, yeah. Okay. We should probably pick it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So let me go a little bit quicker here. I'm going to go with St. John of the Cross. It's an easy pick for me just because I've been reading a lot more of his work recently. It's inspired a lot of our conversations even in the pod. So he is a huge proponent of the interior life. So he wrote some beautiful poetry. So he's one of the great Spanish poets. But he was a Carmelite as well, and he talked about the different stages of the interior life. And definitely stuff that I'm really learning about, and things that help you or help us as we progress in our faith journeys, to kind of know what we're expecting, know what we're going through. And he was actually really scrutinized for it as well, like his time working on the interior life. I think he was imprisoned when he wrote The Dark Knight, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my 14, so I have two more right now.
Yep.
Oh man. I'm gonna go with Pope St. John Paul II. So JP2, as he is fondly referred to. He is a saint from our living memory.
Yep.
And he wrote Theology of the Body, which is huge. So the Theology of the Body, which is essentially a theology on sexuality, which was really missing in the faith up until that point. It had been referred to here and there, but there wasn't a full-on theology written about it. So this was delivered over the course, I think, of 13, was it? 13 speeches or...
I don't know if it was 13 or not, but I will take your word for it.
I think it was, but I could be wrong. But anyways, a number of... I'm not trying to think of speeches. What is it? Anyways.
Written documents?
Not homilies. He actually said this from his
papal audiences?
No. He delivered these
Angeles?
from... No. What do professors give? Lectures, yes. Lectures. I believe just from his porch in the papal residence.
Yeah.
And so this is really huge for a lot of us as young Catholics, especially in today's day and age, where sexuality is so confused. To understand ourselves, understand love in a better way. Even before that, writing Love and Responsibility back when he was, I think it was still a priest, Father Wojtyła.
Yeah.
And even before that, going into Thomistic personalism. Anyways, we can go on and on about the things of JP2, but...
probably one of the most beloved popes of all time.
I think so. And I have one more before I give it back over to you. Oh, man. I'm going to take, I think, St. Ambrose. So St. Ambrose is also a doctor of the church, I think. But he is the bishop from...
you are correct. He is a doctor of the church.
Yeah, he is the bishop from Milan who actually converted St. Augustine and baptized him. And he had a relationship with another saint that's on here, St. Monica, where he was constantly consoling St. Monica as she was basically crying in the parish day after day, praying for her son to repent and to follow the gospel. In particular, just the amount of patience it must have taken to instruct St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Because he also catechized St. Augustine. That would have been absolutely just needed a lot of grace. And I think for myself, knowing that in my future, catechesis is going to be a part of my life, and that there are going to be people that I have a hard time speaking to, and that will really require patience on my part. His intercession will definitely be very, very helpful.
Very good. Very good. All right, so that concludes our second round of drafting. So far, actually, I'll start with the shorter one. Team Jason, Saint Joseph, Saint Matthew, Saint Michael, the Archangel, Saint Genevieve, and Saint Valentine. And Team Andrew, Saint Peter, Pope Saint Gregory the Great, Saint Jude, Saint Augustine, Saints Anne and Joachim, Saint Maximilian Kolbe, Saint Drogo, Saint Maria Goretti, Saint John of the Cross, Pope Saint John Paul II, and Saint Ambrose. You had just before we get into the third round here, you just mentioned that St. Ambrose is a doctor of the church. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be a doctor of the church?
Oh man, good question.
I think basically a lot of it is just related to how you are, the things that you, I guess, preached or wrote actually became authoritative within the church. It very much provided that foundation, that guideline for a lot of the stuff that we believe today and follow.
Yeah, I different things. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if St. John Paul II eventually is named a doctor of the church as well. He was working with theology of the body.
Sure, yeah.
And things like that, things that really have become driving forces, if you will, of our faith. So definitely. Yeah,
I have here, it says... significant theological contribution in addition to having a high degree of sanctity. And it needs to be, it's a formal proclamation by the Pope or a council. So that's an interesting little tidbit of knowledge there. And just really quickly, I know you had touched on it earlier, but to remember that saints themselves are not people that we worship. Mm-hmm. I think this is especially important to remember in the context of other Christians or Christian brothers and sisters who often ask Catholics the question of, why do you believe in saints? Why do you believe in Mary? Isn't that just idolatry? Mm-hmm. And then it's very important to just remember that we do not worship these people.
Yeah. It's really, it's rooted in a proper understanding of what heaven is, I think. Again, not as a place, but as being united to God. And understanding that unity lends itself to a different level of being able to really petition on behalf of other people in a way that's clearer.
Similarly, and even with our Christian brothers and sisters, we always ask each other to pray for each other, right? I will pray for you, you will pray for me. At the end of our episodes, we often ask our listeners to pray for us. Yeah. That's intercessory prayer as well. Yeah. We're not saints, maybe one day, but that's still rooted in intercessory prayer.
Totally.
Okay, let's get into our third round of drafting to finish this off. Hopefully our listeners aren't too bored or anything. Hopefully we've been, educational and it's been interesting to all of you. So with my first pick in the first round, the 17th pick overall, I will select, I've had the entire round to think about this, so I'm ready for this, Saint Therese of Lisieux, who is also considered a doctor of the church. But I think in particular what I'm interested in for her is she is known as the saint who, I guess, proclaimed what's called the little way. Really just, how do you live a saintly life? By doing really tiny, small actions, which is particularly, it speaks to me, I think, as someone who is, not someone who likes to be out there, always in the spotlight or a big talker or anything. We do have a couple of saints on this list that might fit that particular profile, but not for me. And so I think St. Therese of Lisieux is a great fit for me in that respect.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. She talks about doing little things with love. And I think definitely, it's very much in line with you talking about the ordinary way that you would be the patron saint of as well. So it definitely makes a lot of sense.
Next two are over to you.
Oh my gosh. Actually, I'm going to propose a trade now.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the 18th and 19th and 23rd pick.
Okay.
For Saint Michael.
Saint Michael. How about you keep the 23rd pick, but you give me 18, 19, and Saints Anne and Joachim. I will give you my 22nd pick. In addition to that.
Okay. I lost track.
Okay. So
I'm giving you the 18th and 19th and Saints Anne and Joachim. You're giving me your 22nd pick.
And Saint Michael the Archangel.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I'll move over my...
Yes. I will change the draft order. So I have the next two picks. Great. Oh my gosh, I actually have the next 4 picks. Okay. So I will be making 5 selections in a row. One of them I have already made with Saint Therese of Lisieux. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to get closer to Mary as well. Although I've just gotten Saints Anne and Joachim, so that's great. I'm happy about that. But I will take Saint Elizabeth.
That's what I saw when I looked up.
Yeah, I figured. So Saint Elizabeth, obviously, you know, if you're well familiar with the story, she's the cousin of Mary, who Mary visited. And that's where you get the whole story of the baby leaping in the womb.
Yeah.
Upon seeing Mary. And this baby leaping in the womb kind of signaled to Elizabeth the holiness of her cousin Mary.
Yeah.
And so the line within the Hail Mary, blessed are you among women and blessed is the fruit of your womb, that came directly from Elizabeth, actually. So that's the prayer there. And so Saint Elizabeth is the patron saint of expectant mothers. I know a few expectant mothers in my life, actually. So that's helpful for me as well. Someone who is actually due 7 days from now. So Saint Elizabeth, I ask for your intercession on her behalf. Yeah, so I will take that as my 18th pick. Moving on to the 19th overall pick, I am going to take, I'm going to go with, there's actually quite a few. And I have quite a few. So I'm happy with this. I can just go for a few in a row. So I'm going to take St. Faustina.
Nice.
The Divine Mercy, although to be honest, I haven't prayed that in a while, but the Divine Mercy Chaplet has always been close to my heart. I think, just especially as someone who also went through his fair share of struggles with temptations and sin. Someone who obviously has to go to confession regularly, understanding that the mercy and grace that comes from God, and Saint Faustina being the person who kind of really brought that about, made us all aware of the true mercy, that the divine mercy that comes from God. That is something that speaks to me. So that was my 19th pick. My 20th pick, I am going to go. There are so many. There are so many good ones here. I'm going to go with Saint... I think it's hard to pass up Saint Thomas Aquinas. So, to be honest, Saint Thomas Aquinas is a good one for me because I am not smart, and he is. Often on our podcast, we'll rely on Andrew for a bit more of the more theological, knowledge and whatever. So I could do with a bit of help on that front. And who better to rely on than St. Thomas Aquinas for that? The note that Andrew put in terms of the patron that he is of, literally everything school related.
It's true. He's a patron of professors, academics, students, teachers, literally everything related to school.
So while I am not any of those things, I could do with the schooling help, I think. Yeah. So that's that. And he's a doctor of the church. So that's another cool tidbit there.
Yeah. He wrote a really famous book called the Summa Theologiae, which is a very thick book, but in it captures the scientific proofs of God's existence. I can't remember all of them, but things like the unmovable mover, the first orderer, and those things. So if you're interested, go check that out.
A lot of good philosophy stuff in there.
A really funny, interesting story about him. So there is what they said is he was so close to the Eucharist and understood that he was inspired by the Eucharist that if he was writing and he got writing block, he would literally go into the church and put his head on the tabernacle until he found inspiration.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's great. As someone who has experienced writer's block before, I should have done that. Yeah. Okay, so with my final pick in this draft, barring any trades, I'm a little torn here. There's quite a few that I actually want to take, but I'm going to go with the home pick again. I'm going to go with Saints Felicity and Perpetua. So Jen's sister is one of these names. And then I know anyway, sorry, I'm going to cut off that thought. But anyway, so Saints Felicity and Perpetua, they are the patron saint of mothers. And I'm going to tell the story first before I explain the other two patronages, I guess. So they were two young mothers who were imprisoned together. They had gone through a lot of persecution, and that's why they were imprisoned. So Felicity gave birth to a baby girl while imprisoned, and then these two women, they were after this birth giving happened, to put it the wrong way. The two women were brought into an arena, I guess, to continue punishing them or torturing them, to face a wild cow. Just facing a wild cow or a wild bull, and then they were beheaded. So that's their story. So they are the patron saint of mothers, but also ranchers, given the association with the cow, and also butchers, given the association with cows and being beheaded. Yeah,
interesting.
So I thought I didn't know this story before this episode, but it was interesting to me.
Interesting.
You have the next 3 picks?
I do, and we're gonna round us out. So I'm going to, with my next pick, take Saint Paul. I can't believe he fell this far.
He was a great saint, but not someone that would make sense on my team.
Okay, Saint Paul. So Saint Paul is formerly known as Saul. So I've taken both of the name changes.
The other one being Saint Peter.
Saint Peter being the other one.
Who was previously named Simon.
Yes. And Saint Paul, so he is the patron saint of missionaries and evangelists. He persecuted Christians when he was Saul, so he was Roman. And he was just the most committed evangelist like you'll ever come across. He went on 3 incredibly difficult mission journeys, and like the stuff that you hear about in his letters is actually really, really crazy. In particular, what comes to mind for me is at one point when he was returning to Jerusalem, he literally wrote that he can tell that something bad is coming up for him in Jerusalem, but he went anyways. And then he was like arrested, and everything happened from there. And that's when he keeps writing his letters. But St. Paul, he went to lots of different places across modern day Middle East and Turkey and Rome and I guess Italy and those areas, and he really just set up lots of communities of faith in Greece as well, actually. And he just was a champion of evangelizing the faith. He brought the Gentiles into the faith. He argued with the apostles until that happened in the Council of Jerusalem. So
he was just all over the place. I was looking him up, like just everywhere on the map.
Yeah. So that's that pick.
That's a good pick. Yeah, both Saint Peter and Paul.
I have Saint Peter.
Celebrate their feast day together.
We do. Yes. And then who else am I going to take? Oh my goodness. I'm going to take Saint Monica. So Saint Monica is Saint Augustine's mother. So I'm taking everyone Saint Augustine related. So Saint Monica, she. So her story, I already told a little bit of it earlier, but she was a devout Christian all the way through, even though her husband, so St. Augustine's dad, was, I believe they call themselves Manichees, but again, Manichaeism, not heresy. She was constantly praying for St. Augustine and for his conversion, and just was so devoted to the sainthood of her son. And I think that's why I'm choosing St. Monica, because given that I no longer have the domestic church people anymore, I do at least want the patronage of St. Monica so that I can pray for a holy life for my children with the same level of dedication she had.
That's great.
So that's where St. Monica is. And then with my last pick, I'm going to take St. Eligius. So Saint Eligius is the patron saint of cattle.
Like why?
And this is because I'm convinced that for the rest of my life, we are going to play on this ultimate frisbee team.
Our team is named A Cow.
Our team is named A Cow.
Yeah.
So we started this rec ultimate frisbee team. Don't want to go too far into it, but basically it started to like spread into like a bunch of different sports. As
we're now playing softball.
A lot of us are biking now too. So this is just going to be an entire sports franchise. It's going to span generations. And
we're gonna have an actual draft with cows, with like human cows. Anyway, we're gonna have an actual draft.
We should do it. Yes. But yes. So because of that, we're going to ask for Saint Eligius's intercession for us, the cows.
Okay. That's awesome. So let me recap the teams here for our listeners. If you're watching, you can just see it on the screen. Team Andrew, with a few more saints than mine. St. Peter, Pope St. Gregory the Great. St. Jude, St. Augustine, St. Michael the Archangel. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Drogo, St. Maria Goretti, St. John of the Cross, Pope St. John Paul II, St. Ambrose, St. Paul, St. Monica, and St. Eligius. Team Jason, St. Joseph, St. Matthew, Saints Anne and Joachim, St. Genevieve, St. Valentine, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, Saint Elizabeth, Saint Faustina, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Saints Felicity, and Perpetua. So it's funny because by the time, usually in sports, when you get to the bottom of the draft, into the later rounds, and then when you look at the pool of prospects who were left undrafted, it's kind of like, oh, these are like the players that are obviously not as talented, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to use the same description for our later picks and for the saints that remain
Saint
undrafted.
John the Baptist. I mean, come on.
Saint Catherine of Siena, who's a great mystic and doctor of the church, and a lot of these saints that have been left over and who we didn't even put on our board just because we had to keep a cap at it eventually. A lot of these saints are great saints. So hopefully these were good teams. I don't know. Do you think I'm pretty happy with my team, although it's a shorter team?
I'm really happy with mine.
I think your team is a pretty good one too.
I have 3 popes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And an angel. So
but obviously, like Andrew said earlier, our goal was to make the team that made the most sense for us. Hopefully, none of these are off of the board, so to speak. Hey, if you have any feedback, reach out to either one of us. Leave a comment in the comment section down below, as they say on YouTube. We often share our podcast on social media as well, so leave comments there. But just to wrap up, I think this was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully, again, saints are really important parts of our Catholic lives, our Catholic journeys. Given that they are already in heaven, and these are people that we want to follow, we want to follow their footsteps. Hopefully you learned a little bit about these saints. Maybe you've learned about a new saint or learned something about a saint that you didn't know before. And it's something that's more relatable to you now. Right? And something that that you can now pray for.
And if I can challenge our listeners as well, one thing that I've taken out of my vocabulary, and I think that all of us can, is that line of, well, I'm not a saint. Because there's this idea, for whatever reason, in popular culture, where being a saint is being perfect, and that's not the case. None of the people on this list here are perfect. That's why we took up Mary. So the point is to be holy. Like I said, to cap us off or to start us off, saint. The word saint comes from sanctus, comes from the word holy. So to strive for holiness is to strive for sainthood. So I heard a story of someone around our age who his description on his Instagram or something has the hashtag saint in training, and all of us are saints in training. So hopefully all of us can take life that way, go one step at a time, ask for intercession of the saints that are on this list or other saints as well, if you have other favorite saints, and we'll all make it there eventually.
Go and make your own team of saints.
Exactly.
I actually think this is actually pretty, obviously we started off as a fun exercise with this, but it makes sense to think of the saints that are relatable to you, that you want to rely on in your own team. So just before we wrap up, this is actually our 24th episode. I don't know if you were keeping count, which means at a rate of 2 episodes a month, we have finished our first full year of episodes.
Is this a season 1 kind of a thing?
Kind of a season 1. We don't really do seasons.
This is our season 1 finale.
More or less. Pretty good finale, if that's the case. But just want to quickly thank all of our listeners for, sticking with us for this year. Viewership or listenership has never been important to us, but obviously we do see the numbers. That's not a focus, but we do appreciate that you are giving, anywhere from 30 to, 75 minutes of your time to watch us or to listen to us. So thank you. Keep praying for us. We'll pray for you, and find your own team of saints, and you'll hear from us in a couple weeks.
Thanks, everyone, and have a good one.